Okay, so what is the difference between serialization and deserialization?
Yeah, serialization we can say is the process of converting an object into a format that can be stored or transmitted, such as byte
Mm-hmm.
stream. And this byte stream can then be saved to a file, or it can be like sent over a network or stored in a database. So either of these places it can be sent. And basically it's about talking the object's state and making it portable. So
Mm-hmm.
whenever we want to port the object, so that time we use a serialization process. So for example, if I have a Java object, then serialization would help me to save its state to a file so I can retrieve it later. Okay. And opposite of it is called deserialization. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, if I have already stored the object in a file using serialization, then suppose if you want to further fetch it, so I will deserialize it to read and then the file and then create the object with the same state. Okay, so same object can be retrieved using the deserialization. So that is what is the main difference between these two.
Okay, so what annotation or libraries we use for that?
Uh, we can use serializable interface for serialization, and we have libraries like Jackson or JSON. Okay, so that can handle this more readable formats like JSON and all. So for that, whenever we want to serialize or deserialize, we can use these libraries. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay. So have you faced any challenges or any issue while serialization or deserialization?
One challenge with serialization is like while versioning. So if the class structure changes, like adding or removing fields, so it can cause compatibility issue during the deserialization. For example, if an older version of the object is deserialized with a newer version of the class, so it might throw an invalid class exception. Okay, so to handle this, we can use serial version UUID field in Java. So this ensures that the serialized and deserialized objects are compatible even if there are changes. So as long as the version ID is matched, so there will be no issue. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So another issue uh, we can say is the performance. So serialization can be slow and may result in large files or payloads, especially when dealing with complex structure or large amount of data. So to optimize this, we can use libraries like some cryo and all is there, so that we can use which are more efficient and which is more efficient than the default Java serialization. So yeah, and also we can say like security is also one of the concern. So deserializing data from an untrusted source can lead to some vulnerabilities like
Mm-hmm.
remote code execution. Okay, so to address this, we should validate the data source and use techniques like object whitelisting to ensure only expected class are deserialized. So not everything we should serialize or deserialize always.
Okay, what is the difference between pass by value and pass by reference?
Yeah, pass by value means that when a variable is passed to a method, a copy of its value is passed. So the method works on this copy. So any changes made inside the method don't affect the original variable. Okay. So this is very common in Java where all primitives like int, double and all are passed by value. For example, if I pass an int to a method and change the value inside the method, the original int outside remains unchanged. Okay. But in case of pass by reference, on the other hand, means that when a variable is passed to a method, a reference to the actual memory location of the variable is passed. Okay. However, in Java, even though objects are passed as an argument, it still uses pass by value. The trick here is that the Java passes the reference to the object by value. So if you modify the object's internal state inside the method, so those changes will reflect outside of the method. Okay, but if you try to reassign the object itself to a new instance inside the method, the original reference outside the method won't be affected. Okay, so that's the basically the difference between these two.
Okay, so what is the difference between array list and linked list and how they are different with each other?
Yeah, array list and linked list both are the implementation of list interface in Java, but they are different, we can say, because the way the storage mechanism works for both of them so is different. So in array list uses dynamic array list to store element. So when we add an element beyond its current capacity, so it basically resizes the array by creating a new one with the larger capacity and copying the elements over it. And in linked list, on the other hand, uses doubly linked list, so where each element contains a reference to the previous and next node. So basically we have to, so if our application involves frequent random access or searching, so in that case array list is the one which we should use. Okay, and for the scenarios with frequent insertion and deletion in the middle of or the beginning of the list, so in those cases we can use linked list. It has the links between the nodes. Okay, so it easily we can recreate the nodes and we can add the item, and it's easy to do all those things. Okay, so also apart from that, array list is more memory efficient because it only stores the data and some extra spaces for resizing. Linked list uses more memory as each node has two additional references, one for the previous node and other for the next. So this is the basically major difference between these two.
Okay, okay. So what is the difference between comparable and comparator?
Uh, Comparable basically, so both we use for the sorting purpose. Okay, so comparable, basically it is used when we want to define the natural ordering of objects, for example sorting string alphabetically or numbers numerically. So in that case we use comparable, but since the comparison logic is part of class itself, you can only have one sorting strategy for the class. Like suppose we have a employee class and it has multiple properties, right? So we can sort at a time with only one property of it. Okay, in that case we should go for comparable. But comparator is like that uses multiple sorting logic we can use. So we can create multiple comparator implementation for different sorting strategies. So suppose again in the same employee class, so we can use any of the property for the sorting. Okay, so that is the major difference between these two. So comparator has the method called compare. So that is the place where we write the comparison logic, and this comparable has the method called compare to. Okay, so there is the one which like that we override, and there we write the sorting logic within that. So yeah, so this is the difference between these two.
In which package they are found?
A comparable, I think that is in java.lang, and comparator is in java.util package.
Okay. With comparator, what changes you see with respect to Java 8? So do you see any difference is there between the older version and working comparator with Java 8?
Yeah, basically in Java 8, we have removed all the boilerplate codes. So like instead of creating separate class or using an anonymous class, we can directly write the sorting logic as a lambda. So for example, now we don't have to write the separate class, right? So we can just simply say whatever the, let's say, employee is there, and we have a list of employees. So we can simply say employees dot sort, and we can pass in the Lambda expression, we can pass the parameters, and we can just write compare to method directly. So we don't have to separately go and write the class or any kind of inner class or something like that. So it is way more easier than what we used to do earlier. Java 8 introduced the comparator.comparing method, so which allows us to create comparators in a cleaner way. So that is also one advantage. And also we can easily now reverse the sorting order using reversed method. So that is there also there. So yeah, so altogether we can say like Java 8 makes comparator more functional, concise, and powerful by introducing Lambda expression, method references, and APIs for complex sorting logic. So altogether, this reduces the boilerplate codes and improves the readability. So yeah, so this is the difference I see.
Okay, so in Java 8, directly with stream, do you have any method which you can apply for the sorting?
Yeah, in Java 8 we can use a method called sorted. So stream.sorted we can use for that.
Okay, so do you think Java is 100% object oriented?
No, Java is not 100%. It is, but we can say it is kind of 99% object oriented, because we have the primitive data types like int and float. So all is there, right? So they are primitive data types. So they cannot be used as an object. However, we have the wrapper classes like integer, but still we also have the primitive data types, right? So it is not 100% object oriented.
Okay, so Java being the partially object oriented, as you said, so do you see any benefit of it? So why we kept them? Why did not we make it 100% object oriented?
Yeah, some benefits, yeah, it is there. For example, whenever we have the like this primitive types, um, so whenever we are applying sorting and all directly in the memory, so it happens in much faster way without the overhead of object metadata, right? So operations on primitives are faster because they avoid the overhead of method calls and object differentiating. So then apart from that, using primitive makes the syntax simple and uh, very kind of readable for basic arithmetic or logical operations and control structure. So for example, whenever we have, like, let's say x equal to 5, so it is much more simpler than creating an the wrapper class using integer object, right? So if we will go with the wrapper classes again, it will be like integer x equal to new integer of 5. So it will ultimately create the object out of it. But using directly primitive data types, if we have simply do the addition and all some logical operations, so it will be much faster and easier also. And also this primitive data types, they consume less memory than the wrapper objects counterparts. So that is also one thing. And also while garbage collection, so since primitive data types are not objects, they do not burden the garbage collector. Okay, so if everything was an object, garbage collector would have to manage significantly more memory. So ideally that was going to affect the performance, right? So considering all that, so I think it was thought to keep the primitive data types.
Okay, okay, fine. Okay, so what is a heap dump? Any idea?
Yeah, heap dump is a snapshot of heap memory of JVM at a specific point in time. So it contains information about all the objects in the memory, their types, references, and data. So this snapshot is like very much useful for analyzing the state of the application and debugging memory related issues. So any kind of memory leaks and all if happens, so I mean this is used to prevent that. So it basically identify which objects are using the most of the memory. Okay, and it finds the object that are unnecessarily retained in the memory and which may cause the memory leaks, and also uh, to understand object allocation patterns and optimize memory usage. So for all these reasons we use this, and to also to generate that we can enable the heap dump generation when the application crashes using the some argument we have to give, like out of memory error, and then we have we can give some path, so that way it will basically dump the heap memory over there, and we can further analyze that. And we have some tool, right, so that using that tool we can analyze this dumps, and we can finally analyze like how and which portion of the object is causing the problem, and we can fix that.
Okay, so have you used concurrent hash map?
Yes, yes, I have used it.
Okay, and how about synchronized map?
Yeah, I have used that as well.
Okay, so what is the difference between these two?
Yeah, so both concurrent hash map and synchronized map provide thread safe implementation for working with maps in multi-threaded environment. So however, there are differences between them. So like synchronized map, it wraps a regular hash map with synchronized method using collections.synchronized map. So the entire map is logged for every operation in case of synchronized map, but in case of concurrent hash map, uh, the like we have the set of buckets, right? So initially, let's say the 15 or 16 buckets are there. So the here in this case of concurrent hash map, only the that bucket will be locked where the thread is reading. So instead of locking the entire map, so only that specific bucket will be locked. So only the segment or bucket content the key is locked during the write operation, and then the read operations, for the read operations the other buckets are like they are free. So there will be no problem while reading the data from the rest of the buckets. So yeah, so that's the main difference between these two.
Okay, and how about the performance wise? What difference you see?
So performance wise, in synchronized map, so that will be comparatively slower because the lock is applied on the entire bucket, and in case of concurrent hash map that is much faster in multi-thread scenarios due to its non-blocking reads and that fine-grained blocking for writes. So yeah, so concurrent hash map will be like kind of faster.
And does null is allowed in these?
Null, so synchronized map, I think it allows one null key, and there can be multiple null values similar to hash map. Okay, but concurrent hash map does not allow null keys or values because uh, null could cause ambiguity in concurrent environments, right? So whenever get, suppose it returns null, so it will be like unclear whether the key is absent or the value is null. So yeah, so the null is not allowed in this case.
Okay, okay. Okay, so you know comparable, right? Which we already discussed.
Yeah, yeah, I know that.
Okay, so comparable has only one method, correct?
Yeah, it has only one method compared to. Yes.
It has only one abstract method. So why it is not a functional interface?
Yeah, there are various reasons because this um, compared to I mean this comparable is exist from the very much older version of Java. So whenever it was, I think 1.2 when it was introduced, so there was the purpose was not to be introduced as a functional interface. So that is one thing, and then uh, there is no sense of although comparable has one abstract method, its uses in the context of lambda expression is like not part like practical we can say or meaningful. So suppose we have a comparable we say and we pass a parameter, and when we say like something, so that because comparable is more about implementing natural uh, sorting order, right? So it tied to an object's class design rather than passing a lambda to define behavior at runtime. Okay, and also when you are overriding compare to method in subclass, so this can be done easily, right? So it will still be the compare to method that gets invoked. Okay, so this overriding can be done easily, right? So yeah, so these are the
Mhm.
reasons why it is not functional interface.
Okay, so what is the difference between checked and unchecked exception?
Yeah, checked exceptions are exceptions that the compiler requires us to handle explicitly. So either by using try catch block or by declaring them in the method signature using throws keyword. So exceptions like IO exception, SQL exception, file not found exception. So all these comes under checked exception, and this unchecked exception like uh, so compiler does not require us to handle explicitly. So they are the subclasses of runtime exception. So null pointer exception, then arithmetic exception, array index out of bound exception. So all these comes under the unchecked exception. So like uh, whenever we are writing the code, right? So the any IDE we are using, let's say Eclipse we are using, and um, suppose we are trying to read the file and we are not using try catch block, so or we are not handling it using the file not found exception, so compiler automatically suggests at that time itself that we have to handle that in try catch block, and uh, we have to catch the this file not found exception, or we have to throw it. Like this is, yeah, mean the difference between these two.
Okay, can you explain the difference between throws and throw?
The throws keyword is used in the method signature to declare that a method can like potentially throw one or more exception. So this tells the calling code that like it is responsible for handling these exceptions. And this throw keyword is used to explicitly throw an exception from within method or a block of code. So it is used to create an exception and transfer control to the nearest catch block, we can say. Okay, and or to propagate further up the call stack. So for example, whenever we have, let's say, any age validation code is there, right? So if age like less than 18, then we can just say throw new um, let's say some custom exception or illegal argument exception. Okay, so this is how we use throw. and throws we use along with the method, like some let's say read file is there, then throws IO exception. Okay, and in inside that we don't have to we may not write try catch, and just simply by using throws, yeah, so we can get rid of that. So this is the main difference between these two. Yeah, so throw is basically used in the method declaration, and throw is used in the body of the method.
Okay, do you know singleton class?
Yeah, singleton class is useful, like we can say when the class needs to have only one instance, and that instance need to be globally accessible. So while the pattern can be beneficial in certain use cases, like managing shared resources like database connection or configuration settings, so there we can use like singleton class.
Okay, can you tell me what is double checked locking? Can you explain that?
Yeah, to make the singleton thread safe, we can use like synchronization, and there we have the uh, this double checked locking. So basically, in this case, like uh, whenever we write the this get instance method, right? So first of all, we check whenever instance equal to null, and then again within the synchronized block, again we check if instance equal to null. So this we say like double checked locking.
Okay, so in double check locking, why we have the double check? You know, why we are checking the instance at two places whether it is null?
Yeah, we do it two places because the first time, I mean, before synchronized block, we have like wherever we say instance equal to null. So there we check that outside the synchronized block to reduce the overhead, we can say. So if the instance has already been created, that is it is not null, so there is no need to acquire the lock on or enter the synchronized block. Okay, so basically this prevents the unnecessary synchronization, and we can say it improves the performance of the code. Okay, now the second check why we do is because the inside the synchronized block, it is essential, because even if one thread enters the synchronized block, there is a possibility that another thread might have already initialized an instance before the first thread acquires the lock. So without this second check, the instance would be assigned again. Okay, so that will basically violate the singleton property. So that's the reason why we have this uh, null check at two places, outside of the synchronized block and inside of the synchronized block.
Hmm. Okay, okay, fine. So, what are the advantages and disadvantages of microservices?
Yeah, advantages we can say there are various. So for example, scalability is there. So microservices provide better scalability since each microservice can run independently, so we can scale only the services that needed or wherever the more load is there. Okay, then like we can use any technology, right? So we are not like strict to a single technology. So for example, we have multiple services, so one can be on Node.js, one can be on Java, another can be on Python, and so on. So it is not restricted to some technology, and even we can use different databases with different microservices. Okay, then the development and deployment process, we can say that will be the faster one, because microservices are smaller and independently deployable, right? So different team can work on different services in parallel, and we can like just do the things much faster way. Yeah, so and also the maintenance we can say that is easier. So each microservice is focused on a specific task, right? So this basically makes it easier to maintain, debug, and update the service. Okay, so it is kind of easier. And then coming to disadvantages, so disadvantages we can say like the first thing we can say is complexity. So microservices introduce a significant amount of complexity, so especially when we manage the multiple services. So we need to deal with inter-service communication, data consistency, and distributed transactions and all, right? So we have to make sure that all the various microservices have the data in sync, right? There is no discrepancy between the databases of them. And then since each of them are communicating with different microservices, so there are the chances of increase in latency, right? So that is one thing. And then for the monitoring purpose also it is not easier. However, we have the centralized system to check everything at one place. But yeah, that is also we can say one challenge. So yeah, so these are the main challenges I see.
Okay, so what is service discovery? Can you explain?
Yeah, service discovery in microservice architecture, that refers to a mechanism through which microservices dynamically find and communicate with each other. So in traditional monolithic applications, service discovery are typically tightly coupled and fixed in points and known locations. However, in a microservices environment, services are usually deployed in dynamic and distributed environments, such as cloud platforms or containerized environments, right? So where IP addresses, ports, and instances can change
Okay,
frequently.
what are the usage of API gateway?
API gateway, we can say like it is the first barrier, or we can say that the first layer of any request comes from the client. Okay, so the API gateway handles incoming client request and routes them to the appropriate microservices based on the URL and whatever the HTTP method has been provided. So instead of clients having to know the individual endpoints of each microservices, they interact only with the API gateway. Okay, and API gateway is the one which is responsible for the all kinds of data. I mean interactions between the client and the various other microservices. Apart from that, it also does the load balancing. So whenever we have the multiple request for the same kind of service, then like all the microservice whatever is has been deployed, there can be multiple instances of that, right? In that case, it decides that okay, which these many requests has to be sent to some specific instance of the microservice, and the another some request has to be sent to the another instances of the microservice, like that. So it helps in load balancing, and also authentication and authorization also happens here. Okay, so JWT and all implementation is done here, right? Also the API aggregation part also is done here. So often whenever the client needs to interact with multiple microservices to fulfill any single request, then API gateway can aggregate responses from multiple services and return a like we can say unified response to the client. So thus it simplifies the client side logic and it reduces the number of requests that the client has to make. So that is also there. Then it can also be used for the monitoring and logging purpose. So API gateways have built-in logging and monitoring capabilities, so that allows for centralized tracking of the request and responses. So this helps in debugging, performance monitoring, and auditing of the system. So yeah, so these are the basically key roles of the we can say
Okay,
API gateway.
which API gateway tool you have worked on?
Yeah, I have worked on Spring Cloud Gateway.
Okay, okay, okay. So in your microservices, how do you handle the versioning of the APIs?
Yeah, for handling of the APIs, like we are using like whatever the suppose we have users, right? And so basically API, then forward slash v1 and then users like that, and then in between we will have v2. So that way like versions we are maintaining.
Okay. Any other way you have done?
No, I have not done it yet.
Okay, okay, okay. Now in Spring Boot, what are the advantages you see you have Spring Boot over Spring?
Yeah, there are various advantages. So we have auto configuration done already. So Spring Boot automatically configures the application based on the included dependencies. So in Spring Boot starter web we can give, and it will automatically include all the required dependencies. So we don't have to go explicitly else and add jars or give in. I mean, if it is Maven, then in pom.xml. And then we have embedded servers in that in Spring Boot. So it provides embedded servers like Tomcat, Jetty, and all. So we can include that. So we don't have to separately include the servers. So uh, also uh, like it helps us to build a standalone application with minimal configuration, right? So that is also there. And then it has also removed so many boilerplate codes. So now we have to do minimal configuration and only we have to focus on the business logics and all. It provides various tools like we have actuator and all, right? So all health checks and monitoring we can do. So those things are there. And then so yeah, so these are the various advantages we have.
Okay, what is the difference between at the rate of Spring Boot application and at the rate of enable auto configuration?
Yeah, Spring Boot application is a, I mean, the annotation. So underlying to that, there are three more annotations. So one is add date of configuration. Then we have this add date of enable auto configuration, and then add date of component scan. Okay, so these are the three underlying annotations inside that. And then at the rate of enable auto configuration is like that is responsible for enabling Spring Boot automatic configuration mechanism, which I mean does to configure beans based on the project's class path whatever has been given. Okay. And a configuration is also there, like we can just give add the rate of bean, and those things will be picked up. And then add the rate of component scan is there, right? So in the current uh, package structure, whatever the configurations has been written, so it will automatically scan all of them, and it will put to container. Okay. And those beans will be added there, and whenever required they can be further used by Spring Boot. So yeah, so this is the difference between these.
Okay, so how many ways you know you can run the Spring Boot application?
Whenever we write suppose the code in Eclipse, right? So there we can just say right click and we can run as a Spring Boot application, so it will run it. And then uh, so basically we in the Spring Boot application we have main method, right? So that we run, so that is there. And then uh, we can create an executable jar file and run it java minus jar, so that way also it will run. And then for in Maven we can just say Maven Spring Boot run. so it will run. So yeah, these are the ways I know.
Okay, okay. Okay, so in Spring Boot application, suppose if I don't want to use the embedded server, okay, so what should I do for that?
Yeah, for that we can disable the embedded server in Spring Boot. So for example, in the dependency we have a Spring Boot starter web, right? So we can just simply say scope as provided in the Spring Boot starter web. So that will basically exclude the embedded server. So that provided scope basically ensures that the dependency is not like bundled in the final artifact, and the application won't include the embedded server. So that is how we do it.
So what is Spring Boot Data JPA?
A Spring Boot Data JPA is a module of Spring Boot that makes it easy to integrate JPA based data access layer using Spring Data project. So it reduces boilerplate code and provides feature like CRUD operations, paginations and sorting and all with a very minimal configuration. So that is what we use. um I mean in this. So suppose, and it also provides the built-in we can say some methods. So uh, like suppose we have to say something greater than 50 or like that. So it provides like inbuilt methods and all.
Okay, can you tell me the steps to create a Spring Boot Data JPA?
Yeah, so first of all, suppose if we have the Maven project, so we include the dependency Spring Boot starter data JPA, and then we can add the configuration to the application.properties or YAML file. So there we have to give the data source URL, username, password and all. So there we can give, and also we can mention the database which we are going to use. And then for the table from which we have to fetch the data corresponding to that we have to prepare the entity class. Okay, and that entity class will have like at the rate of entity, at the rate of id, and all the necessary annotations will be there. And then we will have the um, uh, like JPA repository will be there. Okay, so suppose if any employee table is there, from there we have to fetch the data. So we will have that interface employee repository that extends JPA repository. Okay, and then we will have like find by name or whatever methods are required. And then we can like in the service class, okay, in we can write the business logic if any is there, and that will ultimately will be fetching from the JPA repository. So yeah, so basically controller calls the service class, and then service class further calls the JPA repository, and that hits the database and get fetches the data and passes back to the whatever the calling client is there. So yeah, so that's how it works.
Okay, okay.